A simple walk with my dog turned into a nightmare when 3 men thought I was an easy target. What they didn't know was that my dog, Baxter, wasn't just a pet. He was their worst nightmare. They thought they could get away, but the ending of the story taught them a lesson they'll never forget. Let's start from the beginning. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I'm 67 years old and have lived in this neighborhood long enough to know when something feels off. Usually, it's a quiet area, tucked away from the city's chaos. But sometimes quiet can be deceiving. Every evening, around 10 p.m., I take my dog Baxter out for a walk. It's our little ritual. Just me, him, and the cool night air. Baxter isn't just any dog. He's a German Shepherd, big enough to intimidate anyone who doesn't know him and smart enough to outwit most people who do. What makes him truly special is his history. He used to be a police canine. After years of service, he retired due to an injury, and I was lucky enough to take him in. He's not just my companion, he's my shadow, my protector. That night felt no different until I turned the corner. 3 men stood under a flickering streetlight, their silhouettes stretching across the pavement. Something about their stance, the way they huddled together, made my stomach twist. Baxter felt it too. His ears perked up and a low growl rumbled from his throat. One of the men noticed us and smirked, nudging his friend. "Hey, look at that," he called out, his tone mocking. "Grandma's out for a stroll with her big bad wolf." The other 2 laughed, their voices echoing in the still night. "Maybe she's training him to fetch her groceries," another chimed in, his laugh sharp and mean. Baxter stepped closer to me, his body tense. His growl grew louder, a clear warning as they started walking toward us. My heart raced. Panic tried to claw its way in, but I pushed it down. I've lived through enough to know that fear is like blood to sharks. It only makes them bolder. The tallest of the 3 tilted his head, his smirk widening. "Relax, lady," he said, holding out his hands in mock innocence. "We're just saying hello. No need for the guard dog act." But I knew better. Baxter knew better. His growl turned into a bark, sharp and commanding, like he was daring them to come closer. That's when I realized this wasn't just some harmless teasing. These men had a different kind of intent in their eyes. Baxter slowly turned his head and looked in the direction of the... Tightened my grip on Baxter's leash and braced myself. Whatever they were planning, they had no idea what they were about to face. One of the men reached into his pocket and pulled out something metallic. The streetlight caught it, making it gleam in a way that sent a chill down my spine. It looked sharp, like something you'd use in the kitchen, but definitely not for cooking. A cylinder? A very large object, looked like something you'd use in the kitchen, but definitely not for cooking. "Don't worry, Grandma," he said with a grin that made my skin crawl. "This will be over before you even blink." My breath hitched, but I wasn't about to let them see fear on my face. My legs, though, they didn't get the memo. They started trembling, but I planted my feet, determined to hold my ground. Baxter, on the other hand, wasn't fazed in the slightest. His growl grew louder, deeper, so low it felt like it vibrated through the air. His fur stood on end, and he took a step forward, placing himself squarely between me and the men. The tallest one chuckled, nudging his friend. "What's this mute gonna do, eh? Huh? Bark us to death?" Baxter barked sharply in response. The sound echoed through the empty street. It wasn't a bark you'd hear from a regular dog. It was a warning, a challenge. The shortest guy, who had been quiet up until now, shrugged. "Let's just show her who's in charge and be done with it." It was like they thought this was a game. Baxter barked again, louder this time, taking another step forward. His movements were deliberate, almost calculated. It was like he was sizing them up, deciding which one to take down first. "All right, Grandma," the tall one said, taking a step toward me. "Call off your dog, or..." He didn't get to finish that sentence. Baxter lunged forward, stopping just short of him, teeth bared, growling like thunder. The guy jumped back, holding up his hands. Whoa, okay, chill out, Mutt. But Baxter wasn't chilling out. He was locked in, ready to protect me at all costs. And me? I tightened my grip on his leash, my voice steady despite the adrenaline racing through my veins. Baxter doesn't back down, I said, staring them down. So unless you want to find out what happens next, I'd suggest you rethink your life choices. They didn't know who Baxter really was, but they were about to find out. The guy with the sharp-looking object stepped closer, his grin gone, replaced with an ugly glare. He raised it in the air like he was trying to prove a point, aiming it toward Baxter. "Let's see how tough your dog really is," he sneered, taking another step. Big mistake. Before he could make his move, Baxter darted forward like lightning. His jaws snapped onto the man's arm with precision. It wasn't a wild attack. It was calculated, deliberate, the kind of move that screamed, "I've been trained for this." The man let out a scream that shattered the eerie silence of the street. "Get this crazy dog off me," he shouted, his voice cracking as he tried to shake Baxter off. Spoiler alert, Baxter wasn't letting go. The other two men froze for a second, their bravado crumbling into wide-eyed panic. "What the heck is wrong with this dog?" one of them stammered, his voice a mix of shock and disbelief. Baxter, still holding the first guy by the arm, gave a sharp tug, yanking him off balance and sending him crashing to the ground. The metallic object clattered onto the pavement, forgotten, as the man writhed, trying to free himself. "Get off me!" he yelled again, his tone growing more desperate. The taller one snapped out of his shock, rushing forward. "We've got to take him down!" he shouted, grabbing a chunk of wood from the ground. The third guy hesitated, clearly second-guessing his life choices, but followed anyway, muttering under his breath, "This dog's not normal." They came at us together, their movements frantic, but Baxter didn't even flinch. His body tensed, his focus razor-sharp. "Baxter, watch out!" I yelled, stepping back as one of them swung the wooden piece at him, but Baxter moved with a kind of agility no regular dog could match. He dodged the swing effortlessly, releasing the first man's arm and shifting his attention to the taller one with a deep growl. He lunged, knocking the man backward like a loud thud, daring him to try anything else. The guy hit the ground with a loud thud, daring him to try anything else. Okay, I get it," the man stuttered, holding up his hands in surrender. The third guy didn't even try to step in. He just stood there, wide-eyed, looking like he was rethinking every decision that had led him to this moment. Except it wasn't. It was the mother herself who turned and... "This isn't just some dog," he whispered, his voice shaking. And he was absolutely right. Baxter wasn't just any dog. He was a former officer, trained to handle situations exactly like this. But the fight wasn't over yet. These guys weren't ready to back down. Not yet. And Baxter wasn't done showing them what real strength looks like. It happened fast. The other two snapped out of their hesitation and lunged at us. One of them grabbed a rusty metal pipe that had been lying on the ground and swung it with all the force he could muster. "Stay back!" I shouted, panic creeping into my voice. But Baxter wasn't about to be caught off guard. He sidestepped the swing like it was nothing, his movements quick and precise. The guy stumbled forward, thrown off balance by the force of his own swing. Baxter wasted no time. He barked sharply, leaping forward just enough to make the man drop the pipe. "Are you kidding me?" the guy yelled, his voice breaking as he backed away, his confidence clearly shaken. While that was happening, the third guy thought he'd be clever and sneak up behind me. Big mistake. I felt a tug on my shoulder and turned just in time to see him reaching for me. My heart pounded, but instead of freezing up, I gripped my handbag tightly and swung it with everything I had. The bag connected with a solid thunk right on the side of his head. I pulled free. "Don't even think about it, buddy," I snapped, adrenaline surging through me. The guy stumbled back, clutching his head. "What the heck, lady?" he shouted, looking more offended than hurt. Meanwhile, Baxter was handling the guy with the pipe. After disarming him, Baxter lunged, knocking him flat on his back with a force that seemed impossible for a dog. The man let out a yelp as he hit the pavement, and Baxter stood over him, teeth bared, a low growl rumbling.